Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel outside the target demographic. Today I'm going to be tackling the second to last sound deadening area in the Subaru, and that is the trunk. Let's get started. At this point we did the bottom of the trunk. We did not do the side. So a little bit of research on the internets. There's probably 5 or 6 of those pull tabs, but what you're looking for are these cargo hard points. And what you're going to do is you're going to use a screwdriver to pop the middle portion out. There's, I believe, a 12mm socket here, as well as here. This will be wonky, but just use a flathead screwdriver. You're going to pull this tab open, and you have a 10mm socket. And then you're just going to move this out of the way, get up behind that plastic, and give it a tug. Now that both of those are pulled, it's going to help if you drop your rear seat. But again, we should be able to start prying from both ends, and this whole black panel will come out. Be aware you have a wiring harness on the passenger side for an anemic light. And then on the other side, you're going to have a wiring harness for a 12-volt cigarette outlet. Moving to the right side of the car, there's a panel here that is on top of the panel we're going to be trying to remove. So you'll just reach up underneath, pop a couple of the pops, lift it up out of the way. Much easier with 2 hands. And now you'll have access. There should not be any bolts or anything. There's just going to be a couple of the pull tabs that you'll have to account for. Next trick, go ahead and grab your weather stripping and give it a pull. That's going to give you some insights as to what it is you're trying to fight, those 2 clips there. And it'll also give you a vantage point where you can start popping those. So we're going to start pulling these from the rear seat side and also prying the trunk side until this panel comes off. With that panel removed, you'll notice a couple things. One, there's a lot of exposed hollow metal in here. 2, this is a little vent. And what this does is every time you slam a car door, you're pressurizing the cabin that has to go somewhere. So it blows these baffles open and allows the pressure to neutralize. There is one on both sides. This one is substantially, probably half the size is on the other side. Doesn't really matter. You have your tank release for the gas tank. This one you have to operate with the Subaru, this model year anyways, Gen 4 Forester. Down by your feet is a release latch that will give you access to the gas tank. That way it doesn't get siphoned or anything like that. So not too terribly much going on here, but there's a large hollow cavity that's taken up by the gas tank on this side. But on the other side, it's actually not too much going on over there. So what you could do is, I'm thinking of installing a power inverter in there. And it's going to be up against the metal, which is going to allow it to breathe. You're going to have the baffle system here, as I discussed, for neutralizing the cabin pressure. So you will have some semblance of airflow. It gets it much out of the way. And on the left side, you have this little access port that pops out. And I could probably mount 1 or 2 wall outlet receptacles that will allow you external access to the power supply, the power inverter that you are installing inside the chassis. So look for that in another video. Now that this is opened up, we're going to cut these strips of the Noico sound deadener. I'm going to go along this seam, along this edge, and then all the way up in there, which is going to translate to under this window. A strip here, a strip there, and that's essentially it. Even this sounds pretty rigid. So there's really not too much point, except that that's not carrying through the ambient noise. That is your wheel well. So there is a noise generator directly underneath it. So I am going to want to attenuate that sound. But this, I mean, that's just a drum. So if we go here, that is, or before, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. This one again goes to the base of the window, and we now have nice. Okay, so it is better. It is less tinny. It is going to continue to make noise. There's no way you can get around it, but I don't know how well the microphone's picking that up. It is better. The last thing I do is when I have the panel off, it's much easier to handle inside. So I take it inside, I clean it down, and then I use linseed oil. And that's why this is all shimmery, shiny compared to standard plastic. As this hardens, it will continue to keep its sheen, but it's also waterproof. It acts as a hard coat material, almost like a clear coat on a paint job. It's going to prevent your plastics from drying out. It's an oil, so it's going to rehydrate the plastics that exist. It's going to be waterproof. It's going to prevent scratches, and it comes in a quart for $20, something like that. So it's something I do since I'm in here anyways. Man, you could just see the reflection. Let's see, that's 2 feet away. It's beautiful. So we will be doing the same with that panel, and let's do it. This is a very dynamic piece of plastic, so it is very piecemealed, the 10mm insulating foam on the back, but any sound that does resonate through your chassis is going to be blocked by the 10mm foam. Additionally, this is a thermal liner as well, and it's going to help keep the heat inside or outside of your car. So your air conditioning will stay in the chassis or in the cabin longer, using less energy or more efficiently cooling your interior temperature. And or during the winter, the heat is going to stay in your cabin longer because it has to permeate through some insulation before moving its way out to the metal. And turns out metal conducts temperature. So the more you can insulate the air temperature from the metal temperature, the better off your climate control is going to be. So piecemeal it as best you can. I have access ways for each one of the connectors and stuff, so don't cover those, and let's go ahead and put it back in. Again, we have the 10mm foam added onto it now. The linseed oil makes it look much better. Keep in mind, most of these should have came off with your panel. Some of them will not have. So now is the time to go ahead and check over, make sure that each one of them does or doesn't have the connector. It looks like I'm missing one here as well. So we're just going to pry that out first, and then make sure that you connect up the one electrical connection for your useless light on the passenger side, and again, the one electrical connection for your cigarette outlet on the other side. From the passenger door, I did return that connector from here. There's one down here below the height of the seat. You're actually going to want to leave that in place. What you're going to do is you're going to slide this one down onto that mushroom head. The inverse, the plug is going to stick out maybe a 1/2 inch, and there's not enough space in here for you to push in. Well, there is, but you're going to be pushing the seat material out of the way before getting it lined up and trying to pry it back in. So the slot is orientated in a way where you can just slide it back down on that. Use that as an index more than a connector. So let's go ahead and pop it all back together. All right, so everything just kind of sort of pops into place as we discussed. This again is non-adhesive. You're just gonna slide it, push it into place. It is much easier to do with two hands. That's gonna cover up all your contacts there. I find getting the seatbelt up out of the way will help you negotiate putting this panel back on. Clip it right onto your seat release there. Again, you will have to remove the child seats that you may or may not have in your trunk in order to do this. But now, oh. That's plastic, that's the bumper. There's not much you can do there, but the interior, there's something, oh, right. There's a little trap door here that may or may not disconnect. It's easy enough just to leave it on there, but that does have a bit of a rattle to it. Put that in there. This connects here in some manner. We're gonna go ahead and cut so I can use two hands. All right, so that is all tucked away. What we're gonna do now is we have to put these guys back in. So let's do that. We have one here, one there. Now that both of those have been tightened up, we're going to return to the seat side. You got these wings. You'll notice there's a little connector there. You're going to slide that end up under the seat as best you can. That's going to lock a lug in here, and then you're going to pop it into place. So again, lowered enough for this edge to fit under the seat. By this edge, start pushing backwards and towards the seat. And it slipped into place. This lug engaged, this popped into place, and now everything is where it needs to be. And there we have it. Looks much nicer, sounds much better. We have nice and nice. And again, this is me smashing the side of the metal with a pretty decent amount of energy behind my fist. So driving the car, wind noise, reverberations, road noise, stuff like that is going to be minimal compared to someone actively knocking on the metal. And then we did do the wheel wells, which are more of a dynamic thing. You can't really test that as you're seated. But at very least, if it did nothing else, it allowed me to understand where my wiring harnesses are, what type of connector that needs and that needs, what I can store back there, how much noise deadening material I needed to make it a little bit quieter. It looks much cleaner. I was able to linseed oil everything. Looks much nicer. So I appreciate you guys coming along for the ride. Speaking of, it is raining, so I'm going to try to get a ride in. I don't think I'm going to do it in the rain, and I will try and add that to the end of the video. But suffice it to say, as I've said before, every little thing you do with noise deadening is going to amplify the return. So in this one, I used one roll of $15 each 10 millimeter foam and a sheet and a half of the Noico. So this was maybe like, what would that be? 15, 20, less than $25 worth of material. And that's a lot of sheet metal on a panel that will also, due to its hollowness and resonance chamber being so closely linked to the wheel well, it's probably going to have a pretty dramatic return on investment. But we will see when I take it for a ride. Here we are later that night, doing 40 miles an hour, 2,000 RPMs. That was the windshield wiper because it is drizzling outside, which means the roads are covered in water, which means I'm throwing a rooster tail behind me. I cannot hear this car. Oh, it's amazing. Literally whispering right now. In neutral. Here comes the turn signal, the loudest part of operating my car in 3, 2. brakes had a bit of a grind there. What I've come to realize is, being in the Rust Belt, I feel like I've mentioned that a couple times, the car sitting for a day in the driveway, you go out and look at your rotors and they have some orange or brown, very, very surface level rust on them. So within the first, couple dozen brake applications, that rust goes away and the brakes sound better and better. But country road, doing 40 miles an hour right now. We're going to bump it up to 45. And I'm going to let you take in the ambiance. The slightest hiss sound of the water being slung out from under my wheels, again, actively precipitating. Concerning that like 10% of the cars on the road have one of two headlights that's out, but who am I to judge? At this point, I have behind the driver's seat floor well and the both front floor wells to do, and everything else has been done. Again, the loudest part of operating this car is still the HVAC system. The second loudest is the turn signal. And the third loudest is the mechanical linkage of me doing this. Manually shifting gears because manual car. Other than that, I mean, the windshield wipers are louder than a 45 mile per hour car. That's rain on the windshield. Rain now instead of just mist sprinkling. I can hear it. I can definitely see it. But again, it's more of a sizzle and not a ping, 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 ping. And I attribute that to the fact that I did the hood, which would recommend, actually very simple to get to. Not as simple as the doors. And the fact that I got the car tinted, the plastic layer of tint on the inside of the window is going to some degree, maybe not a selling point, maybe not something that can be marketed, but it would have to some degree. Wearing socks would have to keep your feet warmer, stepping on cold concrete, right? That you don't sell it as an insulator, but it definitely is making all the glass quieter with wind and rain. Haven't gotten to test it with snow yet. It's great. Honestly, the most expensive part of this whole thing is the time. It takes several hours. I'm probably approaching 20 hours at this point, learning as I go, researching as I go. But if I had to do it all again, absolutely would. I could probably get it down to 6-8 hours. If you follow the YouTube mini series on my channel, you can do it in 6-7 hours. Everything makes a substantial difference. It's fantastic. So that's about what we got. We're gonna go in neutral down a hill. And the turn signal is the loudest part we have. So 10 out of 10 would recommend. All right. Clunk, clunk, clunk. There we go. Appreciate you guys coming along. And that's what it sounds like after the ride. So hopefully I proved that it can be done. It can be done pretty cheap. This was maybe an hour and a half if I did everything without recording and knew how to take it all apart. Relatively simple to do. Gives you a better idea of what you can store, where you can store it. I have a hammock here, a small tent in here as well, and I could secure them behind the plastic if I really wanted to, but you can make some changes, cut that plastic out, get another smuggler storage kind of thing, whatever you want to do. But as always, this is outside the target demographic. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Any questions, comments, concerns you have, leave them in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys in the next video.